Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss about best practices in IT governance. After watching this video, you will be able to recall the best practices of IT governance. Best practices for IT governance followed by some of the top performing companies. IT is a huge part of most companies' budgets. CIOs write massive checks to vendors that are forever gobbling each other up and gaining the leverage to increase their fees. IT governance. The process that follows a company's senior management to direct and measure their IT investment is one of the ways to the biggest bang for those big checks. But most governance functions do not work that well. Typically, all those committees, meetings, reports, and the rules for engagement do more to encumber IT decisions making than facilitate it. Now let us have a look at each one of them in detail. Crucial factors for effectiveness of IT governance. Transparency. IT governance mechanism should be transparent to all the managers. Covert IT decisions taken off guard reduces the confidence level of the people in the structure, and they are less willing to play by the rules, which are designed to increase enterprise-wide performance. Actively designed. Most of the organizations have an IT governance body, however, it somehow never works. Many organizations have ad hoc and clumsy IT governance mechanisms. These ad hoc mechanisms are because of governance by default, that is, introducing mechanism one at a time to address a particular requirement, example architecture issues or over expenditure or duplications. Correcting problems as they arise is a defensive technique that caps the opportunities to strategic impact from IT. Therefore, IT governance mechanism should be built around organizations, objectives, and performance goals, thus creating a rational design that can be widely communicated. Infrequently redesigned. IT governance redesign is an extremely difficult task involving lots of man-hours. Getting into thinking, implementing is even more difficult and more time-consuming. Hence, it should be undertaken sparingly. Redesign is not an option until and unless there are major changes in desired outcomes. A major change in business strategy or a merger typically requires changing business governance and hence IT governance as well, because new desirable behaviors are sought. But changes in the economy or to strategy should not result in governance redesign. For example, if an economic slowdown results in an organization modifying its governance processes, it might that the governance processes were badly designed and always needed attention. Education about IT governance. Educate training and education has to be provided to all the managers to understand and use IT governance mechanisms. Trained personnels are more responsible and hence tend to be more accountable to the decisions that they make. Making informed decisions will reduce the need to refresh their strategy now and then. The top management has to invest time in IT governance. Education for achieving IT governance. As a CIO, I invest a lot of my time in making governance works at all levels to educate, coach, mentor, and lobby, says Andreas Patz, UNICEF's CIO. CFOs tend to cut the tail of projects. They cut the budget on training and support, send the consultants home too early, and move on to the next IT investment before learning enough about the current one. Simplicity. Good governance mechanisms are easy and straightforward and an attempt to achieve a small number of performance goals. The lesser the number of goals, the easier IT governance is to design and manage. Each new goal often requires new governance mechanism and will add to complexity and will result in a conflicting outcome. It is important to identify the key performance goals and desired outcomes for IT governance. The most important should be incorporated with the IT governance. An exception handling process. Most successful business will continuously to be in search of new opportunities. These might not be supporting by existing IT decisions. IT governance should clearly define exceptional handling processes so that new opportunity can be discussed in the open and debated to nurture learning in the organization. In the absence of an exceptional process, these uncharacteristic exemptions will keep occurring but without any learning. For example, UPS, the successful package delivery and logistics firm, has a clear-cut exception mechanism for its IT architecture and standards. The business domain specialist and the IT specialist have to both justify the exceptions, one from the business viewpoint and another from the technical viewpoint. If the domain specialist and the IT specialist can't agree, the issue will be escalated to the CIO through the IT architecture team and then to the executive management if agreement can't be reached. Each exception's worthiness will be debated using the exception handling process. If the business case is solid, the exception is granted. It is later placed on a list of technology incentives outside the architecture only to be incorporated into their architecture at a later stage. The most important benefit of this approach is that it allows business changes and new business opportunities to be effectively incorporated into the standard IT architecture environment. Governance design at multiple organizational level. In large organizations with multiple business units and spanning across geographies, IT governance has to be done at various levels. The starting point would be, of course, enterprise-wide IT governance with a small set of enterprise-level strategies and objectives. Organizations might have different needs in different divisions and different geographies. Hence, they might in turn need separate IT governance for different units. They can have a layer of governance that is common across all business units and geographies, and then a separate layer for each separate entity. A common governance matrix for the various levels of organization will make the connections, common governance mechanisms, and the pressure pain points pronounced and clear. Aligned incentives. Incentives and reward in organization are so heavily discussed that we all feel points are covered and well understood. In spite of this, the most common problem of IT governance is that the behaviors encourage IT governance arrangement and that by the incentive systems are not aligned. The typical issue is, how can governance work if the governance mechanism and incentive system advocates different behavior or outcome? The mismatch is bigger than an IT governance issue. In leading an organization is not the job of only the top management. It is necessary that the lower level management and the executives should also be provided adequate information and authority to empower to take the right decisions. Good governance requires that the right group of people are taking the key IT decisions so that the desired outcomes of governance are achieved. An acid test of good IT governance is whether the CIO can leave the enterprise for a couple of months in his absence. Will the governance work effectively, or does it require the CIO's leadership to function? Assign ownership and accountability for IT governance. Similar to all the other organizational initiatives, IT governance also must have an owner and accountability. The buck, of course, stops at the board, and the board will be finally held responsible for all the governance activities. But the board can delegate their responsibility to a single individual or a committee similar to the financial committee or the human resource group. While choosing the individual or group responsible for IT governance, the board has to address the following three important issues. IT governance cannot happen in isolation, nor can it be designed or strategized in isolation. It has to be done alongside other organizational assets such as financial, human, hardware, etc. So the individual responsible should be capable of having a complete 360-degree view of the organization. One person or individual or a single group cannot implement IT governance. Equal participation from all the groups in the organization is essential. The board should make it clear to the entire managerial group, from the junior management to the executive management, that their participation is of utmost importance, similar to how they have been contributing to the governance of other important organizational assets. The individual responsible should be able to appreciate what IT is capable of and not capable of, and also how IT can help fulfill their business objectives and interests. The general view in the CIO, Chief Information Officer, is the most appropriate person to hold the responsibility of the IT governance and its performance with some well-defined measurements of success. implement common techniques across all the key assets. The key asset of an organization are human assets, financial assets, physical assets, IP assets, information and IT assets, and relationship assets. It is important to have similar techniques of governance across all these 6 assets so as to achieve synergy. For example, a company just having excellent customer-facing staff with no great product or service or value to offer will fail miserably. Similarly, having a great product or service with inefficient customer relationship executives, managers will also fail miserably. Hence, it is important to provide a uniform customer experience to the end user. Hence, developing synergies across departments or assets is the key to success. Let us have a quick recap of what we discussed in this video. We have learned about best practices for IT governance, followed by some of the top performing companies.